tutorial area for the game. It basically tells you how to move around, how to access the menu. And this is the 100% category. We're going to get all of the main game items. This game has a very, very extensive post-game. And 100% just gets the things that are in the main game. So things you can do, say, in a casual playthrough without breaking the game. So what I just did there, this is the first sort of tutorial dungeon section. It's called Street. I did an entrance warp, but because the entrance was set a few rooms ahead of where I spawned, I used it to gain a little advantage. Oh, I did it again there to get back through the gate. Why is this not? Now we're wiggling. That was weird. Okay, so that's the wiggle glitch. The wiggle glitch is fairly self-explanatory. If you are pressed up against a horizontal surface and you wiggle across a screen transition 6 times, you can clip into a wall tile, and that's very handy. We're not going to do this game in the way that other 100% speedruns work. Skipped a little text trigger there as well, getting off screen quickly enough. We're not going to do this in the way that other 100% speedruns work. In other 100% speedruns, we often get stuff and then beat the game. In this game, we're going to beat the game first and then get the stuff, because at the end of this game, you unlock a very, very broken power-up called the Swap. Which allows you to rearrange tiles on the map to your liking almost anywhere in the game. And after you beat the game, that is unlocked. You're only able to use it in the main game in very certain spaces, but after you beat the game, it becomes unlocked almost everywhere. So we're going to go and get that as quickly as possible, and then go around, grab everything we skipped. But we are taking a few detours for things that are quicker to get before we get the swap. Like this. Remember that fish guy? This is his house. We're going to fall down the hole, so we're back out of bounds. Oh yeah, I skipped the first dungeon of the game. That woods section earlier, you need a key to get through it, but you don't really with the wiggle glitch. There are 6 dungeons in this game. The order for them is slightly non-linear. Gonna avoid Sage so that I don't get him talking to me. Sage is that guy in the hood. Yeah, there are 6 dungeons in this game. The order is slightly non-linear. You can do 2 and 3. Dungeons 2 and 3, you can do like 3 first and 2 second. And dungeons 4, 5, and 6 you can do in any order amongst those 3. But I number the dungeons in a certain way based on the way the devs seem to number them, based on a cutscene about halfway through the run. By the way, I hope you like memes, because it's a parallel universe. Parallel universes exist infinitely to the sides of the main game map. And they have 1 tile of vertical offset, so you'll notice I go up here. And you can see something from the screen below on the screen above. There's 1 tile of vertical offset per PU. This is a swap. And going into a PU allowed us to walk straight past a boss fight that's in that area called Terminal. And I'm not doing this properly. Right, hope you like wiggling, because we're going to wiggle past another boss fight. So in the PU there are no objects, so I used it to skip past the gate that was blocking me off from crossing that bridge, and I crossed the bridge in the parallel universe, and then walked back to the main universe. So that I could enter the loading zone from behind and get into here. which is the last area of the game. Okay, we're done wiggling. The basic story of the game is that you are in the land, which is a representation of the protagonist Young's subconscious. And you have to save the Briar, which is that guy, from the darkness. And the way this game operates is to place very familiar mechanics in very unfamiliar and abstract and surreal settings. The game's story is quite vague, but the game's sense of mood is very strong. We now have to sit through the credits because we just beat the game, but luckily if we hold our first action button, which on the default keyboard bindings is C, we can skip through them like this. Normally they go a lot slower. So you can see in the background everything we didn't do and that we're going to do shortly. Okay, so I saved at this checkpoint. I saved my progress at the end of the game, but if you save at a place that's not a checkpoint, it will still put you back at the last checkpoint you saved at. So I've got the swap and everything, but I'm back here, which is good because it lets me grab some stuff that is around this area of the overworld. So that was one of the cards. You need 37 cards out of the 48 that are in this game for 100%, because the other 11 are post-game cards rather than main game cards. And what I also got there was a health cicada, or cicada, depending on where you're from. And that's just a health upgrade. You sit through that little animation, and then it gives you health. Health management, for what it's worth, is very simple in this game. It basically comes down to don't lose health. After every boss, or every time you get a health cicada, it refills your health, and that ticks up, and it waits about half a second per health piece you've lost. I just went into this dungeon. This is the first dungeon of the game. I went into it from the back and then did an entrance warp to go to the front of it, and now we're just detouring through, grabbing everything we need, and now we're out of bounds. And we're just going to walk over here, and this is the boss. We're just going to stab it from behind with our trusty broom. Decent fight. That boss was really simple. It does the same thing every time. And we're just going to stand here and wait for our friend to give us some health. Don't need that key. 100%, the category for 100% is based largely off the Steam achievement for this game, which doesn't include the keys, doesn't include a cardboard box you can get in a save or back to a checkpoint here, by the way. Doesn't include the 3 keys, doesn't include the cardboard box, doesn't include any of the post-game cards or secret items. So this is 100%, but I recommend you go through this game yourself if you're interested, because there is a lot that you're still not seeing. And now in a creepy town. This is Young Town. Those things, those shadowy creatures are called killers. They do 6 points of damage to you. One of only 2 things in the game that can do that. So you don't want to get hit by them. But thankfully, that's not very difficult. They don't move very quickly. Normally you have to... you actually are a killer yourself in this area. Your broom is replaced with a sword, and instead of talking to people, you stab them, and you have to kill a certain number of people to get into that house I went into with the card in it. But since I don't need to do any of that, I've got the swap, I just go through the back into the loading zone. And then houses are stored on the same map, so I just walk to a different house's loading zone, which is higher up the town. And now I'm in the 4th dungeon of the game, which is the apartment. In the story, it's the apartment of Mayor Ying of Youngtown. And there's all sorts of lore around the town. So we're just going to get some cards and walk along. We're a few floors up in the apartment now. Gonna avoid that gas guy because the gas reverses your controls and it's not good. And now we're at the boss. This is the most RNG reliant boss in the game. It's called the Watcher. Ideally, I'd like it to stay up here and keep shooting fire and not move. So that hasn't happened. Do you mind? Thank you. Okay. That was decent RNG. I think I'd call it slightly below average. You'll notice what I did there is I swapped something so that I could just stab it at the top of the screen without having to dodge the fire. And the second set of dungeons ends with cards, because you need to collect those in a casual playthrough. Did an entrance warp, and then if you entrance warp in areas that's not the dungeon, you go to the hub world called the Nexus, and then if you entrance warp in the Nexus, it takes you back to this central screen of the Nexus. And we're going to use it to go back to the fields using the portal we unlocked earlier. You can pick up dust and surf on it. That little text box just tells you, hey, you picked up dust. You can put the dust down if you attack again. There's this big maze in the fields, a lot of it's on water, to go and collect various cards, but we have the swamp, so no. We're just gonna go at our own leisurely pace. Making sure I swap precisely there, because if the tile you swap has an animation on it, the textures don't update properly. Ow. I tried to dodge that, but I missed it. So you've got to make sure when you're swapping things like water that you don't accidentally put walls where you don't know walls are going to be and block yourself off. This is how you unlock the second set of dungeons. You need the 3 keys to go through here and go up to this windmill and turn it on. And now we get a nice little cutscene of these statues moving, and these statues are how you are supposed to get to the second set of dungeons and the other bits of overworld that they've got. And now you might think, well, Pigeon, why don't you just swap around the statues? And you'd be right, except for this one thing, which is the chest at the bottom of the windmill, which needs you to open, which needs you to turn on the windmill for it to open, and has a card in it that you need. So we have to turn on the windmill and watch that cutscene. But it's nice, bit of a break. Oh. We're gonna walk straight out past the loading zone. And come out of bounds and then go into the forest. We're now making our way to the 3rd dungeon of the game, the Mountain Cave. I'll take some safety saves because I'm going to be doing some precise movement for this next bit, and if I mess it up I soft lock. I have to entrance warp or save warp or something. Yeah, the kind of movement I'm doing is called one train, and you'll see it a lot in this area called the cliffs. To move out of bounds, I pick up a tile, I put it down in front of me, and then I pick it up again, then move onto it while it's selected, and then place it in front of me again. And that allows me to just move infinitely through the out of bounds area. But of course, give me one, thank you. It's risky because if you mess up, you get surrounded on all four sides by walls and you can't escape, and you have to warp somewhere or quit the game. That was Mitra, the girl you saw earlier on the bike. She gave us some shoes. We can jump now. I'm going to try and jump to this. I got it. I was able to grab that card while Sage was walking over to me, which is just a little time save. And now this boss is called the Wall. It's a big face with hands. On the Steam version of this game, well, I'm not sure it's still on the Steam version of this game, they might have updated it, but on older patches of this game, Mega Man's face is hidden in the sprite for the wall somewhere. So if you want to go and find that, you can. This boss, its attacks are RNG, the direction it shoots the orbs is RNG, its hand movements are RNG, whether it does a certain attack is RNG. Bad attack. But the RNG doesn't make too much of a difference, really. You just hit it 2 times whenever it smiles, and it's fairly simple from there. Unfortunately, this boss can sometimes soft lock, and that didn't occur this time, but basically the text that the boss says after you beat it doesn't appear. We're going to go off into this sort of... it counts as part of the dungeon. You access it through a separate entrance. But it gives us our first non-swap upgrade to the broom, which is the Extend, which extends its range lengthways. We're going to go downstairs, and then we're going to go behind the stairs. That's door hurdling. It only works on both ends of those sets of stairs, and I don't know why. But it's very handy. We don't have to swap out of bounds, we can just jump. And now we're going to walk. Again, all the floors are on the same map. We just walk between them. Go and grab a card, entrance warp, and walk out. And that's the third dungeon done. I'm jumping slightly before I hit the ladders, just because walking speed is slightly, ever so slightly faster than ladder climbing speed. So we're just grabbing some cards on our way up. So we're out of the cliff now, and now we're in space. This is a really abstract area. Probably one of the most abstract areas in the game, besides the tutorial area you saw, which is called Blank, or the Dimensional Rift, depending on whether you want to listen to the game's code or the game's lore. Here we've just got 2 cards to pick up, and there's nothing here that can hurt us. Those friendly boys don't hurt us at all. They just crowd round us. After we grab a chest, we're gonna walk back to the Nexus and then jump straight into the portal. I'm doing something that saves half a second to a second. It's very easy to do here, but because I'm facing upwards when I grab the chest, when I spawn back into the Nexus, I can jump straight into the portal without waiting for the fade in animation to end. You can see there. If I were facing any other direction, I'd have to wait for that little fade in animation to end and then turn around and jump into the portal. Now I go into the next dungeon, the hotel. Entrance warping, because the entrance is marked a few rooms later than where you actually enter the area marked as the dungeon. Saving here for a save warp later. Going to grab some cards. And now we're just going to walk back. Go to floor 2. Get another card. And then save warp again. I'm mashing with both C and enter for the menu, by the way. And now meet the manager. Hope you like eyes and spiders. So if you hit this boss in a certain way, it will always move in a certain way. That was a pretty good fight. Ideally, we want the health refill to give us full health by the time we finish the first phase. Now you see the spider part of it. This is more RNG heavy. How high it goes up the room is dependent on RNG. That was very good RNG because it stayed in the same place the whole time and I barely had to move. Gonna wait for our little bug friend to give us some health. Back to swap. Go and get the end card of the dungeon, and one moment, this one, save warp again. Yeah, that was dungeon 6 of the game. The mountain cave was dungeon 3. Hold on a minute. Don't need to walk there. Walk back. Can avoid Sage's texture because it's still there. So from there, dungeon 6, we're moving to dungeon 2. And we're just going to do that by walking around out of bounds and going to the overworld area before it, which is the beach. I'm doing a little bit of precision movement here, just making sure I get onto this screen so that I unlock that portal, because we're going to need it in a moment. Dropping through, getting some cards. Making sure I'm facing up from the cicada grab, because I'm about to Nexus warp and jump through the portal again. So just saving that extra time from the animation skip. And now, just going to swap into the whirlpool, and we're now in the Red Sea. Casually, you have to push that fisherman into the water, and he dies, and the whirlpool turns red with his blood, and then you can jump into it to get here. But Anodyne 100% is a pacifist run. So we don't have to do that, we just swap past him. You got to be careful there, because you can soft lock, and that's not fun. Gonna swap through the dungeon, go to this. This area isn't actually connected to the rest of the dungeon, but it counts as part of the dungeon. Get our final broom upgrade, the Widen, which extends your range perpendicular to your broom's angle of attack. And it's completely useless in this run. Skipping a key door puzzle, getting some cards, walking along, not doing the tentacles that we need to do to unlock the boss. I'm one too high. And for some reason there's a vibrating picture of the boss smoking a blunt in that room, poorly drawn. I don't know why. You can talk to it, it says something, but my game's in Japanese because there's less text and that's faster, so I don't know what it says. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm gonna go through this sort of it's a sort of semi-secret area. I think you can only get to it with the swap, but we use it to our advantage here. And now this is what the boss actually looks like. This is the rogue, and he's angry. I'm going to stand in this precise position, and if I've done it right, which looks like I have, he'll stay in this one spot and never enter his second phase. In his second phase, he starts moving around the room and shooting waves that knock you off of your dust, which makes it harder and slower to attack him. But we don't have to do that. From Dungeon 2, we're now swiftly moving on after a bit of overworld movement and collection, to dungeon 5, which is our last dungeon of the run, and you'll see what that is shortly. But first we're going into the labyrinth, or 8-bit dungeon, despite the fact that it's not a dungeon, it's an overworld section. In the code it's referred to as cell or train, and it gives this game a whole 8-bit vibe to it. Pretty neat. We've got to go and get this. This is our last overworld cicada. And then we're going to save all back. Hopefully we'll get a nice little bit of... I did! That sequence of button presses is really satisfying to me for some reason. Just a nice little thing. So we swapped into a secret area there, and then went through the portal backwards to end up here, where we grab a card. And I'm going to move 7 screens to the right, and then I'll be entering the final dungeon. And I know I've done it right. I know I'm on the right screen when the little red square on the minimap moves to the right twice. And this is the 5th dungeon and final one of the run, the circus. And it's the most RNG heavy. There's an RNG minute strat for the boss, but there's RNG if you mess that up, and it's quite easy to mess it up. And the enemies are also quite RNG heavy, which you'll see in the next room. They always move diagonally, these clowns, but the direction they move is random, and the direction they explode in after you knock them off each other is also random. That was really good because they were all backed into a corner. These lions are RNG, so ideally they don't shoot fire at you, or you don't get hit by the fire. Don't do that to me. Okay, taking a bit of damage here, but it's alright. Oh, that was handy. Now we're coming up to the final boss of the run, called the Servants. And they are these, Arthur and Javiera, I think their names are. And that's the first part of the RNG manip. And the second part, I'm really glad I got to show that off. So I just made sure they stood and threw each other in the right spots, and it was a quick kill, essentially. I think the RNG for this game is partially reliant on the system clock, but I'm not manipulating the system clock at the moment. I just have it set to whatever the actual time is. Time is coming up very shortly when I collect this final item. And time. Okay, that's 100%. Let's see if we've got everything. 37 cards. Good. All the upgrades. And 20 health points. So that's everything. That run was really good, actually. What time did I get?
You had a 29:02.
29:02. I'm very happy with that. Excellent. My world record is 27:52. 29:02. Sub 30 is pretty good. I'm pleased with that. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. I can't remember which run is next, but I'm sure that's going to be great. It's Dishonored, isn't it?
Yes, it is Dishonored.
Dishonored. By, I think it's Dr. T Chops. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I hope you enjoy that. I know that's a pretty good run. I hope you enjoyed this. I highly recommend getting this game. It's on Steam. It's on itch.io. I think those are the only 2 places it's sold, I'm not sure, but it's great for a casual playthrough, and it's pretty good for speedrunning as well. Any percent is sub 5 minutes, any percent glitchless is just over an hour. This fits in the middle at about half an hour. It's a very versatile speed game. Yeah, I think that's all from me.